Players in NBA history, and I consider to be the best player in the world today, regardless of what just happened in this series. Even though it was bad, I think exhaustion played a part. I think we're going to learn that he was a bit injured in this series as well. As great as he is as a player, he's that poor as a leader. You're the face of this franchise, and you've been deferential because you're deferring to your boy Kyrie. That's your man. He's incredibly loyal and what have you. You have to step up as a leader and show that you are truly deserving of being the face of a franchise by holding people accountable.
Dylan, your thoughts on Stephen A's comment?
First off, and I tell Stephen A this all of the time, Giannis Antetokounmpo is the best player in the league, number one. Number two, there are some accuracies there, and here's why. Because, and I saw you, Zach, earlier talking about leadership, and Steph Curry was used as an example. Remember at the beginning of this year, Andrew Wiggins was not vaccinated. And sometimes you got to do something you never didn't want to do to get something you never had. And he chose to get vaccinated. Don't think he wasn't pressured by his teammates. And you know how he got rewarded? He was starting in this year's All-Star game for the first time in his career. That was his reward. And I want to quote the great American philosopher, Ricky Rose, about this one. When you're a hustler, you do anything to win, especially when you're a part of a team dynamic, even if that means a sacrifice like getting vaccinated. When he chose not to do that, he told everybody it became a distraction, not only for the team, but for him, but for KD. James Harden led to Harden being traded, didn't give their team a true chance to be higher in the standings. So now all of a sudden, the fatigue that Stephen A talks about will set in. You know why? Because on March 23rd, you got to scramble to try to make the playoffs. And now every game means something. And since that date, Kyrie Irving and KD were first and second in the NBA in minutes played. And one other point I want to make. There were 16 teams that made the playoffs this year. The Nets are the only one that didn't win a game. When Kyrie played with LeBron, he didn't have to be the leader. When KD went to the Warriors, he said one of the things he wanted to do was be a part of a team that played together, moved the ball, and he was happy that he didn't have to be the leader. Well, in Brooklyn, that's not the case. They will be required to show a level of leadership that they haven't had to show in their careers, and this year they clearly came up vastly short as they're eliminated in the playoffs via sweep.
I mean, a lot of interesting points, obviously, there, but I mean, the one that stood out to me is more leadership from Kevin Durant convince Kyrie Irving to get vaccinated? I mean, is it fair to expect that?
It's impossible to speculate, but I don't know that Andrew Wiggins and Kyrie Irving can be compared in that sense in terms of how reachable they are. I mean, I'm sure the Nets tried, maybe not the same methods as the Warriors did, but it's a good point. It's a fair point. I just don't know that they're comparable in how reachable they are in that particular sense.
You know, after the game the other night, Jalen, Kyrie made some comments about looking forward to helping manage the team with Kevin Durant. Zach thought those were a little tone deaf in terms of post-game comments. What do you think?
Well, the elephant in the room is that he didn't mention Steve Nash, their head coach. And I don't believe Steve Nash is going to be fired. But when he says that, it reminds people of the fact that when they joined up to play with the Nets, Kyrie suggested that they basically didn't need a coach. And when I look at the Celtics versus the Nets, the difference in the best players on the Celtics, Tatum, Brown, Smart, they allowed Ime Udoka to actually coach them and challenge them and make them a better basketball team as the season progressed. Are you guys old enough to remember when there were some idiots that felt like Tatum and Brown should be broken up? That was actually this season. And so they put it together. That was coaching. A first-year head coach in Ime Udoka. That was the difference between those two squads to me. Coaching and allowing your great players to be coached.
How much of this do you hang on the coach?
The coach has to own some of it, but to me, again, Steve Nash got to coach a team in 2 years. He's been managing all these issues. I don't know that he's had an opportunity to really implement what he wants to implement. And a good point that Jill made about Kyrie leaving Steve Nash's name out of that sort of list. He did the same thing in a monologue that he had before they traded half their roster for James Harden last season, where he started listing players that, were part of the core, and he either accidentally or on purpose left off a couple of names, and it ruffled some feathers inside the organization, and here it is happening again. I agree with Jalen. I think it's more likely than not that Steve Nash comes back next year, but that's going to be up to Joe Tsai. Ultimately, that's up to the owner. If the owner decides it has to be done, it has to be done, but I think he's coming back.
Of course, the big move during the season was the trade of James Harden to Philadelphia. It brought back a lot, but the key piece seemed to be Ben Simmons, Jalen, who never suited up for this team. What can they expect or look forward to from Simmons being here after his big win at Augusta earlier this month?
I always felt the best course of action for the Sixers and the Nets would be to do a James Harden and Ben Simmons deal after this season. Simmons hasn't played since last June. He said he has some mental issues, and also he's dealing with a back issue that required him to take a shot. So therefore, you do it in the offseason where you can get them into your building, introduce them to your therapist, introduce them to your coaching, get them up to your system, get them more comfortable with who he is as a man, mentally and psychologically, and then ease him into a summer, ease him into a training camp, and ease him into a season. To shotgun him into the season and then say, oh, we're going to play game 4 when they're about to get swept. I knew that wasn't going to happen. Who thought that Ben Simmons was going to get out there in the 4th game after they just lost 3 games and all of a sudden feel like he was going to be a game changer? I always thought it was unrealistic, and I will say this. I'm disappointed like everybody else to not see Ben Simmons play this year. But let's not dismiss when a player says that they have mental and psychological issues. Kevin Love came out and talked about it. DeMar DeRozan came out and talked about it. That's a real issue. But those that haven't played on a high level, imagine this. The 2 things you do when you walk into a gym, you dribble the ball or you shoot the ball. I always felt Ben Simmons was shooting with the incorrect hand. He finishes at the hoop with his right, but he shoots at the free throw line with his left. And then number 2, when you don't attempt shots outside of the paint, there is something psychologically there. I hope he's able to get it together. Patrick Ewing. What about that one, Dan? What about that get low? That's the black cat right there on the baseline, going over another Hall of Fame. I got a couple of more for you guys if you're up for it. How about Sean Kemp against Alton Liston from the cradle down the lane and over the top of Alton Liston? And if you like to look at Here's the Groove, this is You Can't Stop the Rain when it starts to fall. How about that one? Hot top billing Sean Kemp, but Seattle still had a team. And by the way, they definitely deserve to have another. I got another one for you guys. Okay, how about Scotty Pippen? I'm not thinking of anything. It's just a fact. It's just a fact. Scotty Pippen, one of the all-time greats over another one of the all-time greats. They just walking like I'm talking. You know, that it's like Allen Iverson did Tyronn Lue, except it was a dunk. You know what I mean? And then Spike Lee, Spike Lee, look at how much he's been doing with those things. So much that he's doing the now. In all honesty, John Marie's dunk last night was spectacular. He woke up yesterday against Maurice Beasley and showed violence. And the thing about this, it was needed because it actually got him going. And when Patrick Beverly scored late and said that they were too little, Morant took that personal. And on that final play right there, Anthony Edwards, a terrific young player who just made a big three, can't do that careful. You gotta stay within the principles. You gotta keep shots money. You gotta make him score over the top. But when John turned the corner and finished the way he did with his left hand, it was just spectacular. There's so much from that game to break down. We talked about the stuff, we talked about the things, but John Morant just sort of getting going when they absolutely needed to.
Relentless. You're not keeping him from the rim no matter what scheme you use. You're not keeping him off the line. I think that you're keeping him off the Grizzlies for the next second half again. That he did every second he could give him, and he is up to everything.
Dale, what did John Morant show you last night? He showed me that not only is he a superstar, but this team has now blended his ability to take over a game, in particular in the playoffs, with their regular season success without him. The first couple of games, they were trying to figure a way to ease their superstar back into it. But now all of a sudden, they put the ball in his hands and they allowed him to win the game. This has been a terrific series. They had been that one story of the playoffs so far. Unlike the story of the Brooklyn Nets, who went from
in trouble.
Tried to sneak in club superstar Wilds after the playoff performance last year, but they caught him. They found him right before he got in. In fact, he got a 1-year ban. So he's not even allowed to reapply until after the playoffs next year. So he can stay in line, he can ask, but no. There is nothing. And I think Trey's going to be an excellent player in this league, and one day he might be a superstar. But there is nothing Trae Young can do until next year's postseason to redeem this year. Because the knock on him grew prior to last year's playoff run was good stats, bad team. This is a big Bill Simmons thing, Wiles, that he talks about a lot, and he's not wrong. Good stats, bad team. But last year he couldn't say it because the Hawks were a good-ish team, and then the playoffs they made damn conference finals. It's like, oh, it's good stats, great stats, good team. But then this year in the regular season they were mediocre. He had, led the league in total points, led the league in total assists, but the team was mediocre. And then we can show you right now, this is just a indefensibly bad playoff. 31% from the field, 18% from three. Last night it was a 3-point game. Within the last minute, Trey could do nothing. There have been 85. Listen, PER through is not everything, and it can be misleading at times. sometimes, but sometimes it's a good indicator. 85 guys in these playoffs have played at least 100 minutes. Trae Young's PER is 84th, or was 84th. He's done. So no, this doesn't, it's not a career-long indictment. But in the short term, of course he takes a hit. He was, I think you could argue, the single worst performer of this postseason.
Wow. Well, yeah, certainly among stars. There's no doubt about it. And look,
Yeah.
I think this is good for Trae. I think this is good for him. He needed this because Trae was riding a high, right? He came into New York and plays the Reggie Miller card and just, destroys the Garden, takes ownership of it. And then they played well over the second half of the season. And so it's great to play in, if I remember correctly. And there's a fine line between self-assured confidence and being overly cocky and arrogant. And I think Trae may have been walking that line. And he may have stepped over that line into the negative aspect of it. And so this will bring him back to earth, put him back in the lab, and make him work harder this offseason. I'll give him this. Miami's a terrific defensive team, but Nick, what makes it worse, those numbers you threw up, Kyle Lowry wasn't even there for the last 2 games, and Jimmy Butler wasn't there for the last game. And Trae still was horrible. Now, here's why, like you said, he's still a star. I had him third team All-NBA. I still feel great about that. I take none of that away. Yeah. Right. But the reason he takes a step back is because people were going over. You talked about some think he's a superstar, he's not in club superstar. There were people saying that he's as good as Luka. Like this baby, who won that trade on draft day, right?
Yes.
It worked out great for both teams. Atlanta got what they needed. Dallas got what, no, Luka's better. All right, there were some that, I think I take Trae over John Morant. I really would. John's better. So this brings Trae back to where he belongs, which is a star. He's a great player, but he's got ways to go, and there's levels to this, and Luka and Ja are on a higher level than Trae.
Yeah, and there's levels to the Eastern Conference. If you look at the Eastern Conference landscape, even though they made the conference finals last year, the Hawks are stuck in the morass a bit of teams that might be good in the future, but right now are good-ish, like the Cavs and like the Nets. Like, one day they might be really good, but right now they're, what they are, what they've been the last couple of years. You like at least those two of those teams have good young players. Other teams might be a little, we'll see. But yeah, you look at and this is why it's tough, and why Trae has to take a leap that won't necessarily show up in the statistics. The playoff statistics, obviously, will bounce back. But Wilds, because you look at the East and you say, the Bucks aren't going anywhere. The Celtics are not going anywhere. The Heat are so deep, well-coached, and good that they can look at a Game 5 in the playoffs and they're like, Jimmy, take some extra time. Do you really think Jimmy Butler couldn't play yesterday, or they were extra cautious because they're like, okay, we can beat you without Jimmy Butler, and they were right. And then Philly, even though there is a lot of tumult in Philly right now, they still have Joel Bleeping and Embiid. And that's before we even get to the Bulls, who were really good this year until they fell apart on them. So I think for Atlanta, the best way and most obvious way for them to get to the next level, which was a similar level to where they appeared to be headed last year, is Trae does have to get better. And here is where those offensive numbers, Wilds, are even more damning than they look. He has to be one of the 5 best offensive players in the sport in order to be one of the 15 best players in the sport. Does that make sense? He is such a liability defensively that his offense has to be so transcendent. Brew mentioned Luka. Luka is not a good defender, but Luka doesn't kill you. Luka is not like, if Luka's out there, we got to help him. Luka is passable. Trae is going to have to work his ass off to get to passable. and I don't even know if he can get there. So his offense has to almost always be great for him to have a chance to be great.
All right, quick take. I want your take on it, bro. I think Trey needs to get slightly more boring. Led the league in total points, led the league in assists, led the league in shots. That's my own proprietary statistic. But you can watch a homestand of Trey Young and see more amazing, weird shots go in than you have in Ray Allen's entire career. I just want basic stuff from Trey. And I think he'd become a better shooter, more efficient shooter if he eliminated some of these wow plays. But I don't know if he wants to. I think there's a little bit of ego to it that he can make those shots, that he can be the New York villain, that I don't think he's willing to eliminate those wow plays that it might be better for him to take a boring shot. What do you think about Trey actually playing a little bit more boring?
No, you're right. I agree. That's what I was alluding to with that fine line between confidence and a negative arrogance and cockiness. And this will help him in that regard, because a lot of young players have that if they can do that, if they have that in their bag. But then when you keep losing and people start criticizing, and people aren't just praising you for all your individual stuff, and they're saying, yeah, but he can't win. Yeah, but their team's terrible. That's when you realize, all right, I have to play winning basketball. And I think Trey Young will begin to sink in this summer as he's sitting at home watching the playoffs.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from First Things First, or go watch a few segments from our other shows on FS1.
I don't think you can go backwards once you accomplish what Durant's accomplished. But his goal was to move forwards. And this is, he's standing still now. Like, I think a few things are very crystal. One thing is crystal clear. I think this absolutely guarantees Kevin Durant's going to go his entire career and never be the best player in the league. And folks will be like, oh, Nick, but he was. When? When was he? Tell me when he was. Because last year, Giannis won the title and beat him. The year before, LeBron won the title. So it wasn't either the last 2 years. And 2019, he was injured at the end. 2018, LeBron had maybe his single best season ever. So, when was Kevin Durant the best player? And here's the other thing, Antoine. Because a friend of Wild's and a semi-friend of mine, maybe the only person who loves NBA lists as much as me, Bill Simmons, and he cares a lot about this stuff, keeps calling KD one of the 10 greatest players ever. I just don't see how that's possible. I'm just going to throw names at you real quick. So you have LeBron, Kareem, Michael, Magic, Wilt, and Russell. That's 6 names, okay? You have Duncan, Kobe, and Bird. Now we're at 9. So in order to be in the top 10, unless you think he's better than one of those 9, he's better than everyone else. I haven't said Hakeem. I haven't said Shaq. Forget Dr. J and Moses and Oscar and Jerry West. Forget those guys. But now we're at 14 guys. But I haven't mentioned Steph or Giannis. And I'm having a hard time believing right now better all-time player than Steph Curry, personally. So, yeah, if KD had led this team to the title, then I wouldn't have a hard time believing it. Instead, they got swept in round 1. So, of course, this impacts us.
I got to disagree with you, Nick, on this one as far as it impacting his legacy. We got to stop acting like the Brooklyn Nets were supposed to win the NBA title. They got in through a play-in situation. They were the 7th seed. They played against a 2 seed. The Boston Celtics, and I said this, and I was the first to admit this, because I have a lot of respect for KD and Kyrie Irving offensive ability. I thought it would be a deep series, but it wasn't going to be that they advance and make a deep run in the playoffs. I never said that. I don't know where people get this whole notion that they were supposed to win it all. So for them to be a 7th seed, and obviously getting swept is never good. But KD odds were against him this year. Together, when you look at the roster, Ben Simmons never played. Kyrie Irving with the pandemic, sitting out those those games. So it was stacked up against him. He had a great season for a guy who had to basically play by himself for the most part. He had very average coaching this season, a coach that would not make adjustments and do things that was necessary to make the situation better for him. But his legacy is not, this is nothing to do with his legacy. KD's legacy is not going to be judged off a 7th seed in the playoffs against a very good Boston team. I don't know if you guys think that they were just going to turn it on after being a terrible defensive team all season long and beat the Boston Celtics. It wasn't going to happen. And all of us respected the fact of their offensive skill set, and they were not great. Now, if you wanted to judge him on that, he had a bad series offensively, and you think and the only thing I could just say that was probably in a negative fashion, if I felt like the Nets were going to be as close as they were in most of these games, I would have betted on KD closing the games out. I would have did that. And he did not do that. So if you want to base that on his legacy, then okay, then his legacy is going to be tarnished in that sense. But he didn't have a good enough team to make a deep run and a winning NBA title. Let him get a full team. Let them get this roster together. Then we can start talking about his legacy. This team wasn't that type of team for them this year to be able to put this on his legacy. That's how I feel about this. You got to really think about it. They were a 7th seed. They had to win a play-in situation to be in the playoffs.
But Twan, we know they were a 7th seed only because Kyrie wasn't there for 2/3 of the season. James Harden quit on them. Durant himself was hurt for 21 games straight or something like that. So had they been healthy, and remember, before they brought Kyrie back, they were actually the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference. So the 7th seed is a bit misleading. But let me say this before I go into my spiel. Being swept does not mean like everybody's been swept essentially. Shaq, I think, was swept 6 times.
5 times.
Kareem was swept in the middle of his prime. Jordan, Kobe and Shaq, Magic and Kareem. Go ahead, Twan.
No, I was with
Shaq when he got swept.
Yeah, we won the NBA title. The next year we got swept by the Chicago Bulls. So I understand that completely.
Right. So I'm not going to just say, oh, he got swept, so that impacts it. But I do think it affects how we view Kevin Durant. Obviously, still first ballot Hall of Famer. One of the greatest to ever do it without question. But let's stop saying he's the best player in the world. He's not. All right, Giannis is the best player in the world. And it is not Kevin. If you want to debate Giannis, it ain't Kevin Durant. Okay, that's just a fact. All right. Number 2, stop saying no one should ever again say he's the greatest scorer ever. He's not. Put some respect on Michael Jordan's name. Because Jordan Jordan was swept too. But he never went out like this. He never had one guy lock him up, block his jump shot, like stuff like that. So those things have to end. And I really don't want to hear he and Kyrie are the most skilled duo ever either. Because KD is very, very, very skilled for a 7-footer. He's not like incredibly skilled for a 6'8" guy. He's a great shooter. His handle is great for a 7-footer. Is it great for like a 6'6" guy? It's good. Is he a terrific passer for a 6'8" guy? He's a good passer. So we give KD extra points on skill because he's 7 feet tall. But so let's stop all of that stuff. All right, KD's got one thing left to prove, Nick, and it is that he can lead his own team to a championship. Now, I was one of the few people that did not kill KD on national TV. I might have been the only one that morning when he went to Golden State that did not kill him, and here's why I didn't. Because I said to everybody, I said, look, you killed LeBron James, and as soon as he won a championship in Miami, everybody was praising him. So I'm not going to be a hypocrite and sit up here and rip Kevin Durant, and then when he wins a championship and the Finals MVP next year, praise him. So I didn't rip it. But I'd be lying if I, along with virtually everybody else, doesn't have kind of a
mental asterisks in your mind about those two championships. Because I think I can name a handful of stars that could have went there and won those championships. So KD's got to prove he can lead a team to a title, and I don't think he will. And to me, forget him being better than Larry Bird. We know LeBron's the best small forward ever. Larry Bird's second, KD won't pass him. And I'm deeming Dr. J, let's give Dr. J some respect.
Thank you.
And I'm putting him above KD because he won 3 championships, led 2 teams to NBA, and led the Sixers to 3 finals appearances before Moses got there. So this does impact his legacy.
You're damn straight. And listen, I know folks think that I'm some massive Kevin Durant hater. And he and I have had our instances on the internet, some positive, some negative. But I'm just honest. In this era, I think he's going to go down as the 4th best player. LeBron, Giannis, Steph, Durant. I think that's how it's going to end up. Right? Giannis isn't ahead of him yet. Give Giannis 6 more weeks, and I think he might jump him. I think Steph's ahead of him. And Wilds, I have had to deal with for 5 years. Folks telling me, Durant's been the best player in the league ever since he hit that jump shot in LeBron's eye. Well, if only we had a year 15, age 33 LeBron playoff run to compare to a year 15, age 33 Durant playoff run. Oh, wait, we do. That year, LeBron averaged 34, 9, and 9. He had 8 40-point games. He also played the number 1 defense in basketball, the Boston Celtics, and all he did was hang 46, 11, and 9, and 35, 15, and 9 in their building, and then 51, 8, and 8 in the finals. What did Durant do? Year 15, age 33. Shot 38% and 21 turnovers and swept. It's never been a discussion for anyone that knows what they're talking about, and yet folks have made a discussion for a half decade. It's been laughable. It's ridiculous. He is an all-time great who was never for a single day of his career the best player in the league. And if this week didn't prove it, Antoine, then I don't know what will.
Well, I said it yesterday, really quick. I said it yesterday that he's not in that conversation when you talk about top players that ever played this game, and I'll stay with that. And he's going to go down as a great scorer that played this game at 7 feet, and we will always think about those 2 championships with question marks on it. So that's what his legacy is right now, and he has 4 years to possibly change that. He has 4 years left on his contract.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from First Things First, or go watch a few segments from our other shows on FS1.
Listen, Durant, very interesting picture choices by Durant because he didn't choose the time in Barkley's career where he was the unquestioned bus driver and the best team he was on, Phoenix. So listen, I want to talk a little Barkley and then bigger picture here, because Charles Barkley in 1993, with the best team he was ever on, to get to the NBA Finals, threw up, go look it up, kiddos, a 44-24 in a Game 7 to make the NBA Finals. In those NBA Finals, he averaged 27, 13, and 6, and they lost in 6 on a last-second shot. And guess what? He got criticized for not doing enough and for not closing out on Paxson. That Paxson shot, Barkley got lost, got blown by, defense collapses, and then, unfortunately, Barkley kind of made the same mistake 4 years later on the Stockton shot against Houston before he ended up, or against Utah once he was with Houston. But at that point, he wasn't the bus driver. So Barkley knows very, very well you can be a great player, and with that comes great expectations, and even if you have great accomplishments, if you don't get it done, you get criticized. But Barkley's bigger point is the one that I think is, and it does apply to Durant. Sports are harder the more pressure there is. And Durant, when he was at his absolute best, one could argue, was in the least pressurized situation. When he was with Golden State in those finals as massive favorites. And when Durant has faced the most pressure,
I agree with a lot of what you said. And it's fair because let's just keep it real. It's what a lot of people are thinking. I mean, and it's, a lot of people have said it. You know, Walt Frazier said, yeah, there's those asterisks, right? About KD's championship with Golden State. And the asterisks are there because he was not the bus driver. All right? And until he is the bus driver somewhere, as he is in Brooklyn, and wins a championship, he's going to have to wear that. All right? Magic Johnson would have had to wear the tragic Johnson reputation had he not come back and won 3 championships. LeBron would have had to wear the Dallas in 2011 reputation had he not come back and won 4 championships. And KD, it's not a bad, rep to wear. You won 2 titles, you were Finals MVP. But don't walk around like you were the bus driver on that team. You got to go prove you can lead a team to it. Now, I'm not going to say he wasn't, because people think there's a bus driver and then there's passengers. But there are also situations where there are co-pilots. And I will say that Kevin Durant and Steph Curry were the co-pilots of that Golden State team. He wasn't just a passenger. And I do think there's a lot of stars that, if they're catch and shoot stars, could have went to that Golden State team and won those championships just like KD did. They might not have been MVP in the finals, but they could have won. But he was a co-pilot because he was arguably the best player on the team. Steph is the key to that team. Steph sets the tone. He sets the culture of selflessness, of egolessness, of ball movement, all of that, just like Tim Duncan did in San Antonio. But I'll say, Nick, that they were co-pilots. And I'm not going to say KD was like a passenger on that. But here's one thing he has, Miles, above. Here's one thing he has above Barkley. And I love Barkley, Nick. And I'm glad you brought up those numbers because I don't think a lot of the younger people know how great Barkley was. I like Barkley's game better than KD, really. I mean, he was phenomenal. All right? But the one thing KD has over him, he did win it with his super team. Now, he had a better super team because they were younger, but Elijah Wan, the year before Barkley went to Houston, was 27 and 12. Drexler was 18, 7, and 6. And Barkley himself in Phoenix was 23 and 11. So it's not like, these dudes were walking with canes and they weren't any good anymore. And you said it, Nick. They had a chance to beat Stockton and Malone in the Western Conference Finals, and they lost in 6. And in the next 2 years, they went out in the first round. So that is one thing that KD does have over Barkley, that he did at least deliver with his super team.
And let me just say one thing, Wilds, that in defense of Durant, and this is where Durant, listen, I could help him with some social media. And some of our contemporary NBA guys, they understandably in their youth spent time playing basketball. I spent a lot of time studying basketball. Barkley joined the Rockets the year after, or 2 years after. The Rockets came back from a 3-1 deficit on Barkley. Barkley, back-to-back years, was up 2-0 and 3-1 on Dream and lost. And then a year after that was all said and done, joined them. Because at that point in his career, he knew this is the only chance I have to get a title, and I don't judge him for that, and I don't think it's the exact same situation as Durant, but there are some similarities. But Wilds, a lot of these KD discussions, because it has been one of the preeminent debates of the last 10 years in this league, is LeBron and Durant. And this, to me, is a major distinction between them, which is LeBron, has known for at least the last 12 years, if not the last 15 years, man, if we lose, I'm the one catching. Maybe with the exception of the 2015 finals and the 2018 finals when the teams were so overmatched because of injury or roster. But in general, goes into every playoff series knowing no matter what I do, if we lose, it's coming on me. And he's performed. He has risen to the level of expectation with the exception of 2011. Durant hasn't had to deal with that for a lot of his career. In OKC, when they lost, people blamed Russ. In Golden State, they were never going to lose. And now in Brooklyn, when if they lose, it is on him. They haven't gotten out of round two. That's a real thing. Like, that is the accurate history of it. And I think that's one of the points Barkley's making.
Okay. Do you think it would be fair if you were to help Kevin Durant with his social media? If I was to help Kevin Durant with social media, I would post my 2 Finals MVP trophies. Say, you know, this was Steph's team, it's Clay's team, it's Draymond's team, it's Steve Kerr's team. Well, you won back-to-back Finals MVPs, and everyone just dismisses it like he was along for the ride. No, you watch those Finals, he was obviously the best player. He obviously stepped up. He's obviously the focal point of that offense. And everyone's just rewriting the history because of the Warriors prior to that.
He wasn't the focal point of the offense.
Back-to-back Finals.
He wasn't the focal point. No, that's true.
Steph was the focal point.
Here's what I would say to that.
Steph
First
was
of
the
all,
guy
nobody
his team's game plan for.
Correct. And first of all, nobody dismisses it. I've had listened all week.
Everyone dismisses
two of my favorite basketball people in the world, Zach Lowe and Bill Simmons, keep calling KD top 10 all time. All time. Better than Shaq or Hakeem or Duncan or Bird. You got to pick some people to kick out of that top 10. So I don't think people are dismissing it. The problem, Brew, is this. On that Warriors team, the best defender was Draymond. The best shooter was Steph Curry. The best clutch player was Klay Thompson. And the best leader was Steph Curry. Now, you can argue the best all-around everything player, do-it-all, Durant, fine. You can argue. And in those finals, he averaged 35 points per game in the finals. He was exceptional.
Yeah,
he met the challenge and exceeded. Nobody is dismissing that. That's the thing is, people, you don't get to be like, I want to be considered neck and neck or above Larry Bird, and then be like, well, people can't parse the rest of it. Yes, they can. They have to. And so I think that's what's happening.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from First Things First, or go watch a few segments from our other shows on FS1.
This series against the Hawks last night with a 97-94 win. Miami playing without Jimmy Butler and Kyle Lowry. They still got the dummy. Trae Young scoring 11 points on 2 of 12 shooting. Ouch. The season comes to an end. Shannon, scared to ask this. Do you now agree with Skip that Trae is overrated?
No, he's not overrated. He didn't have a good series. There's no question about that. You get a game like from DeAndre Hunter, like we got last night. Trae played better than win these games. I think a game 2, Bogdanovich goes to 29. If Trae plays better that game, they possibly win that game. Look, the Miami Heat turned their focus to Trae Young and says, we're not going to allow you to do what you did in Philly last year, which is lead this team to an upset over the #1 seed. That's not going to happen. And for the most part, Skip, they did a great job. They can do something that very few teams can. They can throw a lot of people at it and fatigue him out. You mentioned he's not a big man. So when you throw Strauss or you throw, even though Jimmy Butler and Kyle Lowry didn't play last night, they still have a plethora of bodies that they can throw at him to fatigue him. Kind of like what they're trying to do with Chris Paul. Pick you up 94 feet, make it tough for you to get your offense, and by the time you do get to your offense, Skip, it's late in the shot clock. But give Miami credit, Skip. They're the one team was in the play-in. They had to win 2 games. And in those 2 games against Charlotte, he was 24-11, and then he goes on the road to Cleveland, and he goes 38-9. So one series does not change, in my opinion, unless how much credit were you giving him last year for getting his team to the Eastern Conference Finals? I don't think he's overrated, because if you think he's overrated because they only won 1 game, I hate to see what you think about the other guy that got swept. I hate to see what you think about him.
Somebody's trying to change the subject. Somebody's got no ammo left.
Skip, did we not just watch him last year? Average 29-10 and beat the Knicks. We just watched him go 29-11 and beat the Sixers. In the first game against the Milwaukee Bucks, the team that eventually won the championship, he goes 48-11 assists. So after one series, we're going to say, oh, Trae Young's overrated now.
And Atlanta was the 9 seed this year.
Yes.
Is that not underachievement, under expectations?
They were in the play-in. We're doing. If he one of the most skilled players that we've ever seen, if he's arguably a transcendent player, I need to get you on record.
We're not talking about Kadun.
Oh, okay. That's all I want to hear you say.
We're talking about Trae Young, and I will preface my remarks by saying I like Trae Young off the court. He does not like me, and I don't care. He has called me lame, and I'm going to call this series from him lame and lamer, because that's what it got to be. I'm sorry, back to the Phillies series last year. In Game 7, he shot 5 of 23 because Ben Simmons just said, I'll just take him out of the game. And he did. It wasn't a Trae Young game. It was everybody else. And in the end, it was a Ben Simmons won't shoot free throws game.
But still, in 7 games, if he averaged 29 on 11.
Okay. My problem is he's just too little. And when I say overrated, it's because everybody else is rating him on the superstar level. You've drawn it back to just he's a star.
Skip, no. Everybody's, when somebody has a great game, oh, he's superstar, no. There's levels to stardom, and then you got that elite, that KD, that LeBron. Skip, there's levels to this thing. Luka. I think Luka is a superstar. I think Jason Tatum has got his foot in the door, about to walk into the room of superstardom.
I'll give you foot in door. I'll give you that.
Yes.
But I'm going to finish on Trae. He's too little because I don't think he's more than 5'11". and it's not like he's Chris Paul or Kyle Lowry. They're stout and strong. Right. And he's skinny and he can't muscle you. He can't create space with his physique, right? And he shoots way too many threes for my taste and way too many logo threes because they're sensational. When he makes one, the crowd goes wild, right? And finally, he's way too turnover prone. He led this league this year, overcame Russell Westbrook down the stretch to lead the whole league in turnovers, and he's now leading the playoffs in turnovers with 30.
Right.
He had 30 assists in the series and 30 turnovers. That will not work.
No, it's got to be 60 to 30.
It's just hard to overcome. And then you brought up Luka. I'm sorry, the more I watch little Trae, you call him Ice Trae, I call him Mice Trae, but the more I watch him, I say, Atlanta could have had Luka, and you said it's a cultural fit in Atlanta, and I do not disagree with that. That's a bingo. And it's a cultural fit in Dallas. Bingo.
Yes.
But on just sheer...
No, Luka's a better player.
Like, dynamism, just the ability to lift a franchise. Luka's just way better. So Atlanta has to second guess this and say, we should have just sucked it up and taken the white guy, right? I mean,
they should have said, look, Luka's bigger. He can score better. He can rebound better. He can assist just as good, if not better. So there's really no downside. And both of them, you don't like either one of them because you think both of them shoot the three too much.
Way too much. But Luka he's dialing it down.
Yes.
And he's got such high IQ. He's starting to figure out, I can do this and they can't stop that.
Right.
So I'll do this.
Right.
I'll just get it in the lane because he's got this little hezzy move in the lane that nobody can time up. And he can get to the rim on anybody.
Yes.
It doesn't matter how tall you are. He will get to the... I'm looking at Trae now, but Luka will get to the rim.
Well, you saw him against Rudy Gobert. He's like going at Rudy Gobert. He tried to dunk on Whiteside. He's like, hey, I belong here.
And obviously, if he can get in your lane anytime he so desires, then he'll pick your defense to shreds. Because if you give him those three-point snipers, and they got a bunch of them. Right. Brunson usually just goes along for the ride. And then when Luka was out, he had to just take over and drive the train. But if they have three-point snipers, they will just shoot you right out of the gym because they're going to get open looks like crazy. So, but back to Trae, for this series, he shoots 32% from the floor. It's just horrendous. He's 22 of 69. That's 37 missed shots in just 5 games. But here's the killer. From 3, he's 7 for 38. That's 18%. It's just, come on, 7 for 38. And then you go 30 and 30 with turnovers to assists, and it adds up to you had one flash down the stretch of Game 3 at home when he was shooting it poorly, but he finally made a logo 3 that ignited the crowd.
Right.
And then on the game winner, he got downhill on PJ and took him right into the lane and shot his little running floater and got it up, and it bounced all around the rim, and he got some friendly bounces, and it fell. Well, okay, I give you that. And I do think Trey's got a clutchness to him. In fact, I'll give you this. I think he has a little more clutchness to him than Luka does. Just a little bit more. I like him with the ball in his hands with the game on the line. The problem is you can't get enough games on the line with him as your best player. If you have Luka, you're just going to... Your ceiling is way higher.
I'm not going to disagree with that. But also, Skip, you mentioned his size. You bring the double team with Luka. Luka can see over it. You bring the double team with and Trey, you got to look between legs.
He's lost.
Yeah. So that's the advantage. But Skip, even with that being said, Luka is a better player. Luka is a superstar. But to say Luka is a superstar doesn't mean that Trae Young is overrated. For the simple fact, Skip, nobody thought they would. I thought they would win in one game. And I told you, I said, Skip, they're going to win one game back in Atlanta. Used to be the highlight factory. They call it fake for a reason.
Yeah.
But he'll get one game. That's all you could ask for because they was in the play-in tournament. It wasn't like, the difference is the Nets, although they were in the play-in, people picked the betting favorite in that series were the Nets.
Yep.
Nobody picked Atlanta to win more than a game off the Miami Heat because of these depth. Strus can guard him. PJ Tucker can guard him. Benson can guard him. All these, Caleb Martin can guard him. And just think, they didn't even play Kyle Lowry and Jimmy Butler. Now, I will say this. This is a game you got to win. Two of their dogs are out. You lose by 3. If Trey has a halfway decent game, let's just say for the sake of argument, Skip, instead of 2 of 12, he's 5 of 12. Instead of going 0 for 5, he's 1, 2 for 5.
Yep.
That's a game. That's a game that he's going to have to try to find. He's going to have to figure out how to win these type of ball games. A game like this, when 2 of their best players are out, this is where he's like, you know what? I know I've been playing bad. I know what I'm shooting from the field. I know what I'm shooting from the 3. I'm going to win this. We're going to win this game tonight.
That is correct. Remember, Game 4, shockingly to me, because I picked Miami to win the East, there's no Kyle Lowry, and I'm thinking, you got a bad hamstring pull? Because it sounds like not good.
Right.
Okay? So he's gone for Game 4, and you can't win that one. And then Game 5, last night, there's no Kyle Lowry and no best player on the team, because I told you something about Jimmy Butler. He turns into a playoff superstar. He's not a superstar during the regular season, but they're sitting over there trying to coach. And I'm saying, in the starting lineup, you got Victor Oladipo, and I'm a big fan. In fact, I picked Miami. I told you this right here sitting in these chairs, that I like Victor coming off the bench in case you need him, and they needed him. So he's in the starting lineup. And Gabe Vincent is in the starting lineup for Jimmy Butler last night. To your point, that's where little Trey has to say, I'm sorry, we're just going to win this game. And they had their chances because DeAndre Hunter is turning into the best player on their team, and he had 35 and he had 18 in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, but you only got 2 points from Clint Capella. You got 7 points from John Collins.
Yep.
John Collins just got $20, $25 million a year. He needs to give you more than that. Capella's making $20 million a year.
Yep.
Skip. That man gave you 2 points and 8 rebounds in 20 minutes.
Capella.
Yeah.
He's got some knee issue, like a sprain or something, but whatever. Yeah,
that's not good enough.
Okay, I'm going to drive this home with 2 quick reels of lowlights here. If we could see Trey's 10 misses last night, they're just horrendous misses to me. They're team-killing, psychological misses. If we could see the 10 he missed just last night. And 5 of these are going to be threes. It's just an on-the-run 3, and he back irons it. And he launches. Boy, he has to launch with all his might. It's hard to get hot because you got to put your legs into it so much that it's just hard to get the ball up to the basket. Usually he makes that shot. He didn't make that one. And that's a pretty clean look. And
Absolutely.
And he got a little push off there, which is good. He created a little space, and usually he makes.
Shannon, you had New Orleans winning this series yesterday, and I appreciate it. My peeps at home appreciate it. Big question now, are you sticking with that?
Yeah, I'm going to ride with him because I think they can go back and they win Game 6. Now, the question is, I saw Brandon Ingram grab his elbow, grab his shoulder, or something. Skip.
He said he was okay.
Okay.
Whatever. He did.
Normally normal skill, normal people that's walking down the street and everything's fine, they don't like, ooh, what's wrong? I'm fine.
I couldn't see where it happened.
I don't either. I know he took a hard fall, but he grabbed like his tail, like his back, his tail area. But then he got stripped of the ball and he like bent, winced in pain. So I'm assuming everything's gonna be okay. I'm gonna take him at his word. He said everything's fine. Everything's fine. I believe they come back to Phoenix for Game 7. Now, are you telling me, Skip, that CJ's gonna just have to knock down some of these wide open looks that he's getting? He struggled last night, Skip. He was 2 and 12 in the second half. And Mikal Bridges, and this is what we talked about. This is why I thought it was a struggle, because Mikal Bridges has really not shown me a whole lot through the first 3 games, and first 4 games. And now he comes up and gives you a playoff career high, 12 of 17, 4 of 4 from 3, 3 of 3 from the 3-point line, 31 points with a steal. So that's what they needed.
Yeah.
If B.I. is fine, I don't believe Mikal Bridges can have another game like that while C.J. struggles like he struggled over the last 2 games. Now, we saw Chris Paul. He played exceptionally well last night. Gave it 22 and 11. Now, it's been normally great game, not great game, great game, not great game, great game. Are we seeing a recurring theme? Game 6, not so great. I believe the Pelicans come back to Phoenix for Game 7. All the pressure will be on the Suns to win that Game 7. And I believe the Pelicans will get it done. Now, they're going to have to do a better job. They got a little closer to him in the rebounding battle. They would normally out-rebound by 12. This time they only got him by 7.
Yeah.
I'm going to say the Pelicans win Game 6, take it back for Game 7, make it a coin flip. I'll take the Pelicans.
Okay. I told you yesterday, I am not going to bet against Chris Paul III in a home must-win game at this stage of the season, because I believe that he believes this is his greatest chance to go win his first ring.
Yeah.
He does not have Devin Booker, but I think he will have him at some point sooner than later.
Hopefully they can advance and get him in the, maybe get him for those playoffs.
I'm going to agree with you. I do not think the Suns can go back to New Orleans and win a game. I just think it's too crazy there, and New Orleans will play with enough confidence there saying, we'll just make our shots, because this game was just about missing shots, because they were 5 of 25 from the 3-point line. Well, you're going to lose if you're 5 of 25, and if your best 3-point shooter goes 1 of 8, and CJ, and Brandon wasn't great at 1 of 5,
right.
Well, now you're in trouble. Now you're going to lose. And I think some of those shots will fall back home, and Suns will fall, and then come back for a Game 7. Well, I'm going to dig back in. I'm not going to bet against Chris Paul in a Game 7 at all.
With CP3 in the Game 7.
I can't against a team that is still young. I know it's got old, young. It's got a nice mix. It's got the next superstar coach in this league. But in the end, it's Chris Paul. And he showed me something against the Clippers last year in that closeout Game 6 that I just never seen from him. He just like out of his mind, sensational. And by the way, the turning point in this series was Game 3 in New Orleans, because there's no Devin Booker for the first time. You just have to win that game. And look what Chris Paul did. He goes for 19 points in the fourth quarter. That's insanely great from him. 6 feet tall. And he's stoutly built, so it's not like he can really elevate. He has to do it by bumping you off and creating some space with a little bit of quickness, like he goes sideways. He doesn't go up, he goes sideways. And then he's got that lethal little sort of 14-foot jump shot, and he makes them. And he made a couple in the fourth quarter last night that were key, that kept the lead at double digits. Right. Then he made 2 late free throws to keep it at double digits. Well, he was just saying no, no, no. But finally, somebody went along for the ride. And did he ever go along for the ride? Because he's capable. We've seen these bursts from him before.
And 27 last year against the Bucks.
He sure did. But he gets 31. I love this stat because it's some big names. That now there have been 7 players in NBA history who have a 30-point game with 4 3-pointers and 4 blocks. And that list includes LeBron James and Kobe Bryant and Dirk Nowitzki and Kevin Durant and Kawhi Leonard and Mikal Bridges. Are you believing that? So that's some elite company, I would say, for what he did last night. And he plays both ways.
Yes.
He defends at a high level, and when he had Brandon Ingram, he held him to 1 of 4 from the field.
Yeah, the man played 47 minutes last night.
Okay.
There's only 48 minutes of the ball game.
All right, I got it. But listen, don't be surprised if Devin Booker walks back through that door for Game 7 back home. I just wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, and I said that. I didn't think he would come back before that. But Skip, I just believe. Look, the Pels can get this back to get it back to Phoenix for Game 7. CJ is not as bad as what he's played over the last 2 games. He's not. He's better than this. And I don't believe he's going to go 1 for 8. And a lot of the looks are great looks. He loves those looks that he's getting. He's just not knocking them. And shot down. B.I. will be better. B.I. is going to be more aggressive. But Kevin, give him credit. They did a great job. He got Jay Crowder in foul trouble. He had a lot of guys in foul trouble last night. D.A. was big for him last night. Valanciunas got some rebounds, but he didn't have that 25, 26 point, 15, 16 rebound game skill.
Still pretty good.
Yeah.
17 or 14. Yeah.
But that's him. All they needed was CJ to come along. CJ could have to win one. CJ needs to have one of these games like a Mikal Bridges had.
Yeah.
Like a Mikal, because we've seen P.I. get you 30 in 3 straight games. Okay, now, because we've seen CJ do this when he's playing alongside Dame.
Like go south. Like not show up.
I agree. We've also seen him go get you 35, 40.
He's capable, but he's had a lot of off games in playoff games.
Yes.
So you're asking a lot of him. There was a reason he was expendable, and he's helped them immensely.
Yes.
But his track record in the postseason isn't the greatest.
Right.
Okay, so now it comes down to how much can you control Chris Paul when it really matters? Well, I love what Willie Green has set up because he's got 2 kids hounding Chris Paul up and down the floor full court. And listen, both of them are really gifted at defending, in Herb Jones, obviously, and then Jose Alvarado. They're all over Chris Paul to the point that when in dead ball timeouts, he just has to stop with his hands on his knees because he is gassed, and he looked gassed going into the 4th quarter last night.
Well, maybe Skip, let Jay Crowder, let Bridges, let somebody else bring the ball up the court so you're not having to, because Alvarado is leading you up 95 feet.
Just hounding.
I mean, he's standing out, and as soon as they hand you the ball, he's got you.
Just annoying the hell out of him.
Got another violation against him last night.
He got an 8-second, and he's got 2 of them. And he's got technical fouls from Chris because
stole the ball from lagging in the corner. Chris Paul, like, you're not going to get me. Like, yeah, I'm going to get you. And he ended up getting you.
Yeah, and Herb Jones is so long and so savvy and skilled on defense. It's hard on Chris, and it's taken a lot out of him. And to your point, I don't know if Chris could bounce back fast enough to have a big game. That's tomorrow night in New Orleans.
Right.
I don't know if he'll be great in that game. I just know whatever he's got left, he's going to give you in a Game 7 at home.
And he had played 39 minutes. You have to a lot of guys, 37 years of age.
He's almost 37.
Yep. To close the play. Skip, but you mentioned Herb Jones. He's going to have to get you 44 points.
Yeah.
He got to do more than I understand that you got big responsibility. You're going to have to get it for him.
Okay, I'll buy that. But in the end, I still believe that Phoenix has like this reservoir of playoff toughness that's hard to overcome. And by the way, this team, I know it had Devin Booker for the most part, but it was like far and away the best team in basketball, right?
Yeah.
And I think on any given night like last night, they'll just flex and show you we're this good.
Right. It's still they got great production. Landry Trevor came up and did some big shots for him. Campaign played well for him. Jay Crowder. He still struggled a little bit from his feet, but he made some big buckets. I think his thing is it's taking a lot out of him because he's got to guard B.I. or he has to guard CJ.
Yeah.
So his offense is going to suffer somewhat because you got to keep these guys under control because both of these guys could go for 30 in a ball game. So his offense is going to struggle a little bit. But as long as you get production from Shaman, you'll get some campaign. Cam Johnson, he struggled a little bit from the 3, but give you some little toughness.
Yeah.
But Chris Paul last night and Mikal Bridges. D.A. I think D.A. has played as well as he could possibly play, dealing with Valanciunas. Valanciunas is low. He's a grown man because he's hitting him on the post. He's hitting D.A. and D.A. is like, ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh. But but I'm going to say they're going to get this game. They're coming back to Phoenix for a game 7.
You realize the Suns never trailed last night. They jumped right on them and just kept them at bay the whole night.
They got the 6, Skip, but when they got the 6, I'm like, okay, here come the fail.
So I love what Willie Green said after the game. He said, I thought they did a good job of coming out and playing desperate. Well, they did. You should know what you're going to get from them. He says, of the Suns, they played hard, they competed to start the game, it was physical, and they kind of knocked us on our heels early. Did they ever? We did a better job the rest of the game, but we have to start better. Well, if they're going to avoid closeout, they're going to have to turn the tables and jump on them early in New Orleans.
Because Skip, they look at it, get to the foul line 35 times. Remember, he was complaining they got 45 the night before, and it was 45 to 15, something like that.
Yeah.
This was more in line. They got to the Phoenix got to the line 20 times, while the Bills got 35 times. I just believe C.J. McCollum is not gonna play 3 straight games like he played. He gonna come out. He gonna get 30. Going back to Phoenix.
I will give you that, and you're going back to Phoenix to lose.
No.
And you're going to have a moral victory. You can say, we took the Suns to 7 games.
You know, Skip, that game 7 pressure at home, you know ain't nothing like. You know what it's like?
Well, I need them to win because I would rather play New Orleans than play the Suns.
I bet it's Memphis. Oh, yeah. Offensive rebound in the 4th quarter.
Okay, so now let's start going to the sequence at the end of the game. So my man Tyus Jones, I love Tyus Jones, and again, now they're trying to play Tyus and Ja together because Tyus is actually a little better point guard than Ja is as far as decision making. He's a 2. I don't know what he is. He's just a spectacular scorer of the basketball. But Ja can play out of control going down the lane. He can lose it. He missed shots in the 4th quarter. He missed 4 or 5 shots. He missed 5 shots in the 4th quarter, right?
Yes.
5 shots. Okay, so remember, he did miss 5 shots, and every time he would miss, I'd be like, John, just slow down, just cool out a little bit, just back off and take it as it comes. Okay, so Tyus, who I trust is a clutch shooter, misses a 3, and what does Brandon Clark do if we could please see this?
Goes to get the rebound and get it wrong.
And taps it back. This is the play, this is the game saver right here. Tyus. Here we go, Ty. Pretty open look, wide open look, and he misses it right. Look at the taps it back down. And guess who had not made a 3 the whole game? Ja. He made his first and only 3 of the basketball game. And by the way, before the dunk, just for the record, Ja had scored a total of 10 points on 4 of 12 from the floor. And guess what he had done from the free throw line to that point before the dunk? He was 2 of 7 from the free throw line. And by the way, for the whole game, he did 6 free throws. He was 11 of 17. Well, usually that will get you beat, right?
Yeah.
And usually with the visiting team, just look at the 3-point discrepancy for the game. Yeah, and guess who led the whole NBA in 3-point shooting this year? It was the T-Wolves. Okay, so they make 14, and the home team makes only 7 of 28. That's a grand total of 25%. So you get outscored 14-7 times 3. That's you get outscored by 21 points at home from the 3-point line. Wouldn't they usually get your fight?
Of course. And then 13 free throws.
Right, it's 13 free throws. You should have lost. Okay, so now John comes up clutch and makes. I fell out of my chair when he made a 3 because as soon as he went to shoot it, I'm almost like Westbrook, like, nah.
I know what those ones favorite shots.
Okay, well that started it downhill for the visiting team, and then John missed a floater. This one, then I've got to show you this because you were talking about I'm like down on my knees on these. This is 8.2 seconds left. We've got Josh shooting free throws. These are huge. And obviously, if we can see what he did at this moment. This is 8 seconds left. I'm thinking, just give me one. I was like, give me one, and that one.
Shannon, you had New Orleans winning this series yesterday, and I appreciate this series against the Hawks last night with a 97-94 win. Miami playing without Jimmy Butler and Kyle Lowry. They still got the W. Trae Young scoring 11 points on 2 of 12 shooting. Ouch. This season comes to an end. Shannon, scared to ask this. Do you now agree?
Oh. Oh, oh. You all right? Oh, my back popped off weird when I stood up. Well, it feels good now, but it hurt at the time. You know what I mean? I'm getting old. I had to, well, I got that step ladder out. I had to get up there last night and put that switch and turn my fan spinning the other direction. Because it was whining so loud last night after you went to bed. I could hear it plumbing the utility. And when I got up there and flipped the switch, I should have turned it off first and cleaned it. Because I just got up there and flipped it, and then it started spinning the other way, right? All that dust that was on top of the plate, I had to turn it off and clean it like 2 months. It just blew all that off. I had dust all over the place. It looked like it was snowing for about 2 or 3 minutes in my room. That's not good, but I finally stopped and I cleaned it all up. But man, but that fixed it. You can't even hear it. You can't even hear it anymore. It barely makes any sound now. That's just enough. I don't have nothing, Goober. What? the graves of my native street. When I identify nobody goes chick, chick, boom, chick, chick, boom. The senoritas, they sing and they swing with the sombrero. It's very nice. So nice. Singing a song all the day long. So if you like the beat, take a lesson from human beat. And I teach you to chick, chicky, boom, chick, chicky, boom, chick, chicky, boom. Senorita, oh, if you like the chicky, boom, chick, it's the dance of Latin romance. Alice, I'm the foot of the next street. And when I move, my hips go cheek, cheeky, boom, cheek, cheeky, boom. Yes, sir, I'm serious. All we human beings. We humans have a different beat. If so, will you teach me to cheek, cheeky, boom, cheek, cheeky, boom? 60 minutes out. And you like the cheeky, boom, cheek. Very nice. So close eyes. Place my hand on your hip and if you just let me down. We shall turn. Just you and I. So if you like the beat, take a lesson, keep our feet. And I teach you to chick, chicky, chick, chicky, boom. Oh, ay, ay, ay. from Havana. There's always manana. From Havana, and there's always manana. So if you like the beat, take a lesson from Cuban beats, and I teach you to chicky boom, chicky boom. Oh, ay, ay, ay. Everything goes chicky boom, chicky boom. Tell me, yes, man. Cubans have a different beat. Mr. Beat, yes, man. Cubans a different beat. It's so chicky boom, chicky boom. Senorita, I know you like chicky boom, chick. It's very nice. So full of sound. It's my hand on your hip, your hand. Then we shall try. Just you and I. Lucy got some explaining to do. Much. And romance. Good. All right. Thank you. yours down there? No. Do you want half of another one? There's only 4 pieces of cheese.
No, that's fine. Could we take one?
Oh, you need a cup?
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. He got pigs fine. It was good running cookie. Never mind. It was good running. Tell me.
You actually ate it?
Yeah. You eat cheese. But like peanut butter something or something.
Yeah.
He won't eat it. He won't eat peanut butter. I don't know why.
That's weird. Most dogs like peanut butter.
Most of them dogs cook up peanut butter, right?
Yeah.
He won't eat.
I used to. Now, a lot of people give them pills.
Give them what?
That's how a lot of people give them pills.
Oh,
They'll put it in peanut butter, and they won't try to chew the peanut butter, they'll just swallow it. So they'll put the whole little blob of peanut butter in their mouth, and they'll swallow it.
he was trying that stuff.
I know.
You want to go outside? You want to go outside? Huh? You'll go outside. You don't want to go, he can't come this way. You're cooking, that's why you. Yeah, I bought you now, Ryan.
Yeah, he ain't gonna get none out. got me paying taxes for what I gave to you. And gee, baby, ain't I good to you?